and thank you everyone for joining our LinkedIn Live event today. My name is Jenny Pak, Product Marketing Manager at Valimail, and I'm really excited to bring the Let's Talk DMARC episode to APAC. Please welcome our speakers here with us today. I would like to introduce you to Todd Herr, who is our Technical Director, Standard and Ecosystem at Valimail, and Dean Coclin, a special guest, Senior Director, Business Development at DigiCert. I promise it's going to be an interesting discussion with DigiCert to talk about BIMI. And at the end of the session today, you will agree with me that collaboration between IT and marketing brings together the best of the both worlds. A quick reminder before we start, this event is an interactive session, so please use the comment box to chat with us throughout the event today. And a lucky winner would win a Sonos speaker. To be entered for a chance to win, let's start by saying hi in your language and drop your location in the chat and let us know where you are in your DMARC journey. This is all count to be entered into a drawing for that speaker, so please make sure to leave your business email. If you don't want to share your business email in the public chat, you can send a direct message to Megan also. Again, if you have a comments or question, post them to the chat, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can before the event's end. Finally, if you'd like to contact us after the events for more questions, you can always reach us at sales at Valimail. Our team of experts would love to hear from you and help you reach your DMARC goals. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Todd and Dean. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you very much, Jenny, and good morning to those of you here in the APAC region. My name is Dean Coclin, and we're going to get this kicked off right away to start talking about DMARC. So Todd, Valimail is the DMARC expert here. Tell the rest of the group and the audience, what is DMARC all about? What does it stand for, and what does it do for you?
Sure. DMARC stands for Domain-Based Message Authentication, Reporting, and Conformance. Like most things in tech, it's an acronym. It is designed to allow for validated authorization of the use of a domain in the visible from header of an email message. It solves for the problem of what we call exact domain spoofing. So it makes sure that if you see a message that claims to be from yourbank.com, it really is from yourbank.com. It's built on a couple other email authentication protocols that have been around for a while. There's SPF, which is one that authorizes servers and networks to use a given domain. And then there's DKIM, which is one that allows a domain to put a cryptographic signature into a message. And when that message reaches its destination, if the signature can be validated, then the recipient knows the message wasn't altered in transit. And those were both cool, but nobody really had a scalable way for tracking just which domains did authentication and which didn't. So the industry came up with this thing called DMARC, which allows a domain owner to publish a record in DNS that says, hey, we authenticate our mail. Also, we would like to see reports from you of any mail that you see claiming to be from us. And if you see stuff that claims to be from us that doesn't pass validation, we would like you to do this with it. And there are three options right now. One is treat it normally. Second is put it in the spam folder, which is P = quarantine. And the third is reject the mail outright.
So that's interesting. So if I understand this correctly, if you have DMARC, can someone attempt to send a message as your CEO, for example?
They can attempt, but it shouldn't make it to its destination if you're properly set up. If somebody tries to spoof a message, says from CEO at mycompany.com, and mycompany.com has published a DMARC record that says please reject anything that's not properly validated, that message shouldn't get to its destination at any site that's actually doing DMARC validation on inbound mail.
Interesting. So that's a really great benefit of DMARC. Let's transition to talking about BIMI, because BIMI is another acronym that has come up recently. What is BIMI, and what does it do for you in your company?
Sure. BIMI is another acronym, like you said. It stands for Brand Indicators for Message Identification. It's an incentive for companies to do the difficult work of getting to what we call here at Valimail DMARC enforcement, which is not just publishing a DMARC record, but also having that policy in place where you're either asking all mail that fails validation to be put in the spam folder or rejected outright. It requires that DMARC be at enforcement not just on the domain you're sending from, but also on the domain we call the organizational domain, which is the one that you registered to get a presence on the internet in the first place. In a lot of cases, those may be the same domains, but there are certainly companies out there that may have mycompany.com registered as their organizational domain, but they're sending their marketing mail from marketing.mycompany.com. BIMI requires that DMARC be at enforcement on both of those domains. It can be very challenging to get there, especially in any sort of complex organization or complex environment where you've got your own server handling email for your employees, and then you've hired a third party to do your marketing, and another third party that's maybe handling workflow mail for you, all kinds of different streams, all of which are using your domain. Finding all those and getting them to set up properly can be a challenge, and Valimail is here to help with that with our Valimail as a DMARC as a service offering. We offer you free domain monitoring. We believe we have the fastest time to enforcement in the industry. We have automation to get BIMI in place for you, and we can help you regardless of your business size. Now, the cool thing about BIMI, I haven't even talked about what it is yet, but what BIMI is that it gives a brand owner the ability to choose a logo to display next to their email when it gets to the inbox. In some cases, depending on the mailbox provider, that could be visible in the folder list. When the recipient first opens their mail and looks at all the messages in their inbox, you might see the logo there. Some other mailbox providers don't show the logo until you've actually opened the message. But it's just another opportunity, especially for the marketing side, it's another opportunity to get your logo in front of a customer.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. I mean, getting your logo out there in every email you send sounds really interesting, and I think is a benefit for many organizations. But let me just back up for a second. When you said organizational domain, getting to enforcement, you said can be challenging for some organizations. Does this mean it's really too hard for most people to do on their own, and they need help, or what exactly are you talking about there?
We do believe it's. The reporting part of DMARC, I mentioned, that receivers that do DMARC validation will also send reports on a periodic basis showing how much mail they saw claiming to be from your domain. And that report contains a lot of interesting data. It tells where the messages came from. Did it pass SPF or not? Did it pass DKIM or not? Was it which domain or domains were used to sign with DKIM on the message? All kinds of stuff that can identify at least partially where the message came from, and whether or not you have a problem you might have to address, a shortcoming with your authentication habits that you might have to address before you can confidently change your DMARC policy record to P equal quarantine or P equal reject. It really depends on the size of the organization, but we find that any organization of any size can use the help. And IT staffs already have a lot to do to support their employees, so it's just better to have an expert like Valimail come in and help you to get over that hump, digest these reports quickly, figure out where the mail's coming from, fix the authentication issues you have, and get to enforcement.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about getting to BIMI. What are some of the steps that you need to do to get to BIMI?
Mm-hmm. First, as I said, you have to be DMARC enforcement, not just on your sending domain, but also your organizational domain. The other thing that right now you need to do is you need to have a logo that is trademarked, and you need to acquire, for BIMI support at some mailbox providers, you're going to need to acquire what's called a verified mark certificate, or a VMC. That's something that Dean will speak about here in a minute, because DigiCert is one of the issuers of the VMCs. But those are the basic steps to get to BIMI ready. And once you're there and you start sending mail to mailbox providers that support BIMI, and you have whatever they deem to be a good reputation, good enough to get to the inbox, your logos are going to start showing up with your messages.
Well, that sounds great. I think we should probably transition now to talking about the VMCs that you just mentioned.
Right. And so what is a VMC, Dean?
Well, Todd, as you mentioned, it's a verified mark certificate. This is a digital certificate issued by a certificate authority, which DigiCert is a certificate authority, that when properly issued and installed will allow your logo to be shown next to the from name in various mailbox clients. This slide shows a depiction in the chart here, what emails look like without a VMC and potentially with a VMC. So instead of seeing just initials, for example, you will actually see the logo of the company that you associate that brand with. And this appears differently depending on the mailbox provider. The first mailbox provider to do this was Gmail. This started back in July of 2021 when we started issuing VMCs. And now this has moved on to other major email providers like Apple. Apple in iOS 16, the most recent release of the mobile client, and Mac OS Ventura, the desktop client, are now showing BIMI logos to emails addressed to apple.me and .iCloud addresses. We're also seeing adoption by smaller providers like Fastmail in Australia, Yahoo Mail, which is a major provider, and La Poste, which is a provider in France. So we're seeing more and more adoption as time goes on from different mailbox providers around the world, and we expect this to continue over the coming year.
Okay, and you said more and more mailbox providers around the world. Are there any mailbox providers that don't support it or don't require the VMC?
Well, I think probably the one that's glaring here and that's not in the list of providers is Microsoft. And this is a common question I get is, when is Outlook going to start showing VMCs, or when is Microsoft going to adopt VMCs? Now, since I don't work for Microsoft and I'm not a product manager there, I can't give you any definitive answers at all. What I can say is I think Microsoft is aware that they are currently one of the major providers not supporting it. And we're hoping that they're looking at that very carefully and hopefully doing something that will help implement that at some point next year or later. And we'll see where that goes as time goes on. But as I said earlier, more and more global and regional providers are adding support for VMCs. And Gmail, which is the largest provider in the world for mailboxes, supporting it is quite a testament there. And so if you have a VMC, your logo will show in all of those millions of Gmail boxes that you send email to.
Okay. Dean, can you talk more about the prerequisites to get a VMC?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, we're a certificate authority, so we have to validate information before we issue certificates. As Todd said, you need to have SPF and DKIM on your registered domain. And of course, DMARC has to be set up at enforcement, which means P equals quarantine or P equals reject. And that's a requirement for the VMC to show correctly. You can apply for a VMC without having those things, but once you get the VMC, it will not work unless you have those prerequisites. Obviously, if you have to be a registered organization, a business that can be validated to the extended validation standards. And we have to validate the domain, the company, and the individual. So we actually do a video call with the applicant holding their ID to verify that they are who they say they are. And we also check to see that the applicant works for the company requesting the certificate. As Todd said, you have to have a valid BIMI record, and the logo has to be trademarked in one of 11 trademark regions, which are on the previous slide. So those regions are the US, Canada, the EU, United Kingdom, Germany, Brazil, South Korea, Australia, Japan, Spain, and India. We do expect more trademark regions to be accepted by Gmail soon. So we'll update this on our website, which is digicert.com/VMC.
And I see Megan also putting in the chat for tonight a link to the bimigroup.org website for a BIMI generator. I did want to call that out. Bimigroup.org is the main website for the Authenticators Working Group, which is the body that's developed, the industry body that's developing the BIMI standard. And Valimail is a founding member of that organization and also holds chair position on that organization. So we've talked that right now trademarks are required, Dean, but where do we go after that? Might there be a? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to talk a little bit about that and the whole process. So, as I said, we validate that the logo is owned by the organization. So we check with one of those 11 trademark regions to verify that your logo is trademarked there. And then the logo has to meet certain SVG PS requirements. This is a format in which the logo must be in. If you can't put it in that format, We have some tools to help you on that website I just mentioned. And we do that video call. There used to be a fourth step, which was that you had to appear in front of a notary public. During the pilot and somewhat thereafter, we found that that was sort of redundant with the video call. So we decided to eliminate that step, or the BIMI group decided to eliminate that step. Well, let me clarify that. Actually, Gmail decided to eliminate that step because they didn't feel it added a lot of value. However, it is optional. Now, why would someone decide to do a notary public? And the answer is that that validation step is good for 10 years, whereas the video call is only good for 1 year. So if it's something you don't want to repeat the video call every year, you can certainly go to a notary public, have your identity verified, send that to us, and that validation will be good for 10 years.
Okay. All right.
So let's talk about the benefits from an IT and marketing perspective.
Sure.
Why don't you tell us about what the benefits are for IT?
Yeah, I mean, the benefits for IT, for any IT director, any CISO out there that is worried about his domain or her domain being used in a phishing attack, DMARC's a solution to that. If you publish a DMARC record and you have your domain in a position where you can confidently say, please, any unvalidated or any unauthenticated mail you see using my domain, please either stick it in the spam folder or reject it outright. That is your best protection against your domain being abused in any sort of spoofing or phishing attack. And if your customers and your supply chain and your vendors and everybody else are in a position where they are confident that when that mail gets to them, it's really from you, that's really the best position to be in for anybody who's sending email. It's a side benefit of DMARC with the reporting. You will get some information about the attacks that are happening against your domain. I don't know that you'll really be able to do a whole lot about it, not because you don't want to do anything about it, but because, to be honest, a lot of these criminals are launching from network providers that don't care what they're doing. So, but it's at least interesting to see, and at least you know that the work you did is resulting in a lot of these fishes being stopped, and if maybe that makes you feel comfortable at night. So it's there for you. But it's the main benefit here is to make sure that your legitimate mails are reliably delivered. And as far as marketers go, Dean, what the benefits for them and with DMARC and BIMI?
VMCs are really targeted at marketers because marketers love to get brand impressions. And that's what VMCs give you, the ability to project your brand through all the emails you send with no additional cost for doing that. I mean, there's a one-time cost per year for getting that VMC, but you can take that and send as many emails as you want. And a recent study showed that having that logo next to that from name actually improves open rates and engagement rates by up to 10%. So that's a statistic that I think marketers really like. And it really helps build the brand awareness because that brand now is continuing from your website to all your emails and to the communications with your customers. And your brand now is associated with DMARC enforcement. So there is a security aspect associated with this. For those emails that are coming out with VMCs on them, customers know that those emails or those domains have DMARC enforced and means that is a higher security for those domains. And this helps deliver a more authentic and trusted experience directly to your customers while visually differentiating your messages from in the past where they just showed initials to your registered trademark logo. So this is on email, which is probably the most effective and widely used medium out there. So a lot of great benefits for marketers here. And in many cases, marketers are the ones that are knocking on the door of the IT department and said, hey, get a VMC for our domain. We really want this. And then IT says, well, we don't have DMARC. So marketing says, get it, because I want this out there for our emails. And they work together to make that happen. As Todd said, DMARC can be a process that takes a few weeks, or for a larger organization, many months. But someone like Valimail is here to help those organizations get there as fast as possible.
Yeah, the time box, just to touch on that for a second, the time box on getting any domain to enforcement is really how long does it take you to exercise all the mail streams you have. If you can exercise all your mail streams in a week, you can check the authentication results in a week. You can be ready in a week. If it takes you 3 months or 6 months or whatever, it's just however long it takes you to exercise your mail streams. So.
Correct. So it looks like it's time for our Q&A session, and I noticed a couple of questions coming in the chat here. So let me read one of them. The question is, if you have the same logo on multiple domains, do you need a VMC for each domain? For example, ie.com.au and .co.nz domains. So I'm guessing there you've got the same logo on the .com.au and the .com.nz domains. And the answer is you can get one VMC and list those domains in the application so that when the VMC is issued, that logo will be associated with both of those domains. Now, there is an extra charge for each additional domain, but you will be issued one VMC, and then you can take that VMC and put it on the BIMI record for each of those domains. So hopefully that answers the question. There's another question here for Todd. For existing Valimail customers, how do we start the process to implement BIMI?
I would contact sales@valimail.com to get you started on that process.
But it sounds like it's a pretty straightforward process.
Yeah, I mean, if you already have your DMARC in place, it should be a really straightforward process. But sales@valimail.com will help you through the entire process.
Are there other questions out there that I'm not seeing right now?
I just want to give a shout out to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and prove that I know how to pronounce it right. I saw the one LinkedIn user signed in from there. So.
Perfect. Definitely not the APAC region today.
No.
Okay, so another question just came in. How do I get started with DMARC? We published a BIMI record. How do we verify it's working? Well, actually, there's two questions there. So let's start with the first one. How do I get started with DMARC?
How do you get started with DMARC? Well, the easy way to get started with DMARC is find a DMARC as a service provider like us. But if you can publish a DMARC record with P = none, and it'll have no impact on your mail as far as whether or not it'll be accepted. In fact, that's one of the real cool things about DMARC is it is the best tool to allow out there for you to make sure that you're DMARC ready. DMARC with the reporting function gives you the capability to audit all of your mail streams. So get in touch with us. We'll get you set up with a basic DMARC record, start ingesting all those DMARC reports that the mailbox providers will generate, allows you to make sure that the mail you're sending is properly authenticated, and then you can move on from there.
So the next question is, we published a BIMI record. How do we verify it's working? I think I'll take a stab at that one. And I think the easiest way to do is to send an email to a Gmail account or one of the other providers that was on our chart and see if you see the logo. Yeah. Is that fair enough, Todd?
It is, but the caveat, if your mail is currently ending up in the inbox of Gmail, then yes, send an email to Gmail and make sure and see if the logo shows up. If your mail isn't getting to the inbox now, setting up BIMI isn't going to change that. So you're going to have to fix whatever problems you're having there first before you can see your logo display.
Perfect. And if you're having trouble, let's say you set up the BIMI record, you've got the VMC, and it's still not showing, and you're not sure why, I can help you with that, or Todd can help you with that. You can send an email to me. It's just dean.coclin, COCLIN, @digicert.com.
Right.
The next one is, how long does it take to get a VMC? Well, this is quite a variable question. So I've seen VMCs issued in as little as 2 days. And that means that we were able to validate your organization, have the video call with you, your logo was trademarked properly, and the SVG file that you sent us was in the proper format, and everything went 100% perfect. Unfortunately, that is not always the case. And in fact, it's probably the exception. In many cases, we have issues where the trademark and the logo you sent are different. In many cases, the trademark specifies that the logo has to be a certain color, and we received a logo file that is a different color, and that's not allowed. Or we're trying to schedule the video call and the person is not available, or we're trying to validate the person works for the company and people aren't picking up the phone. Things like that can delay the process, and that can set it back a few weeks. But again, if everything's in order, it can just take a few days. So, yep. Sorry,
I see two more questions in the comment. First is, so for now, Microsoft is not supporting with BIMI. Any more update on this, please? We don't have any more update. Neither of us work for Microsoft. I speak with some Microsoft people on a regular basis about it, but there's no I have no promises or anything, but they are aware that BIMI is a thing, is all I'll say.
Right. I think that's the best answer is they are aware. They're aware that they are one of the major ones not supporting it. And so, whether they're taking action or not, we can't answer that definitively, but we have our fingers crossed.
Right. Next one, do some mail providers ignore the DMARC record? For instance, if I tell DMARC to reject emails, can the receiving mail server still pass that through, and how does that impact BIMI? A requirement to get your logo displayed with BIMI is that the message pass DMARC validation checks. So yes, there are mailbox providers that, in fact, Microsoft is one of them. They publicly advertise this. There are mailbox providers that will see a DMARC policy of P equal reject and treat it as a P equal quarantine and put it in the spam folder. But because that message did not pass DMARC validation, there's no expectation that a BIMI logo would show at any provider that was treating reject as quarantine or anything else like that. You have to have the DMARC in place, and your message has to pass DMARC validation in order to qualify for BIMI logo display.
And it looks like I've got a question here. Is there a requirement for who needs to provide the proof of identity via the video call, or can it be any employee of your company? And the answer is the applicant for the VMC. Whoever is the person applying for the VMC on behalf of the company is the person that we will do the video call with. So it might be someone from the IT department. Usually that's who it is, someone from IT who applies for the VMC, in which case they put in all the company information, their identity information. They'll upload the logo. They'll tell us which country the trademark is in, and they'll also put down how they're going to pay for it. And then we will contact that individual and make sure that their identity matches who they say they are. And I think I saw one more here. Let's see. Nope, I guess that was the last one I saw. And we'll take a minute here and see are there any other comments or questions? You can type them into the chat, and we'll pause for a few seconds to see if there's any other questions. Okay. Oh, here's one more. So, Todd, this might be for you. It says, I know mail.yahoo.co.jp has already published a BIMI record with a valid VMC, but Gmail doesn't display their logo consistently. Is there any condition like reputation score on Gmail?
I can't speak for Gmail's internal workings as to how they choose whether or not to display a logo on a given message, but I do know that mailbox providers have secret sauce that determine where a given message is placed, and I'm sure that secret sauce feeds into deciding whether or not a given logo is displayed with a given message.
I will say that I've had quite a few people ask me questions like that. They've obtained a VMC, and they'll say that their logo is not appearing in Gmail. The good news is we do have some good contacts at Gmail to help us troubleshoot issues like this. So again, if you're seeing issues like this, please email me to my email that I mentioned earlier, dean.coclin@digicert.com, and I'd be happy to look into that for you. Another question is, the logo we would use for BIMI is a portion of our trademark logo. Is that acceptable? Currently, the answer is no. The logo that you send us has to be the trademark logo. Now, I will say that we are currently in discussions with the BIMI group and Gmail and other mailbox providers on a potential new type of certificate called a MARC certificate. A MARC certificate is different than a verified MARC certificate in that it is not a trademark. It's a mark that you have had in use for some period of time and that we can validate. And a image, as you described, would be available as a MARC certificate, not a verified MARC certificate. These are still very, very preliminary discussions. I don't see any implementation of this till probably middle of next year. But suffice to say that if you don't want to use the exact trademark image, there will be an option for you next year.
Yeah, the entire industry has an interest in expanding the adoption of BIMI beyond where we are right now. Simply because, as we said at the kickoff, that BIMI is an incentive for people to do DMARC, and the industry is very interested in seeing as much authenticated mail as they can. So we're aware.
So another question. Oh, sorry.
I was just saying we're aware.
Yeah.
Of the need.
This one looks like it's for me. Does the applicant need to provide their direct contact info or company phone number? The answer is their company phone number, yes. And what happens if the applicant cannot be reached at the company phone number? This is a common issue, especially with COVID, where people are not in the office and we can't reach them at the company phone number. There is an alternative validation method other than calling the company and asking for the person. And in that case, we can provide information on how to do that alternative method. I don't want to go into the details here, but suffice to say that the guidelines do provide for an alternative method there. So I think I may have reached the end of the questions here. So I think we're done with questions. So Todd, I'll send it back to you.
Okay. This last slide here is just a reminder to get your BIMI ready. Contact Valimail. Sales@valimail.com is your best way, or just go to www.valimail.com.
And I think, from my perspective, DigiCert is more than happy to work with Valimail to consult on any of the projects that you might have. And as an issuer of VMCs, we do our best to help you move along through this validation process. As I said, it could be a very short process, but it could be lengthy too, depending on what help you might need. And we're there to help you through the whole, every step of the way.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think Jenny is back, but we can't hear her.
She's on mute.
I just unmuted myself. Thank you.
There we go.
There was a lot of great information around DMARC and BIMI, I hear. Thank you, Todd and Dean. Really, really appreciate you both for taking the time today. And thank you, everyone, for sending us questions and joining us today. And I hope you all enjoyed as much as I did. This is a last call to drop your name and location and where you are in your DMARC journey. And I'm really happy to see someone is already a reject. Also for a chance to win a Sonos speaker. So let us know where you are. Don't forget to add your business email address. You can always send your business email via direct message to Megan, like I said earlier. Also follow Valimail on LinkedIn for everything DMARC. And visit our YouTube and Bright Talk channels to watch this and other Let's Talk DMARC replays. Thank you, and thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day, rest of your day. See you guys again.